There we go. Now I'm recording. Now I'm recording. All right, good job. Thank you.
The point is you can give them.
Don't plagiarize. I guess some people got in trouble for that not too long ago. There was a big posting on the board. They will catch you. Especially with these Turnitin stuff, that finds everything. Yeah, that'd be great. I think it's recording. I'll just edit out what I need. Thank you.
Sometimes though the references are the same, so it's like
Okay. This is for my capstone project. Basically, part of my capstone project is to teach about what I researched and put together. So my project is about type 2 diabetes and cardiorespiratory fitness. This is for the DSM-2 class. My professor is Dr. Poole, and we will begin. And my name is Todd Wembley. Okay, here are some objectives upon completion of this presentation. I expect to be able to recall the basic pathophysiology of type 2 diabetes. You will be able to identify type 2 diabetes comorbidities, discuss the incidence of type 2 diabetes, describe the basics of cardiorespiratory fitness, and recognize that there is evidence which shows a link between cardiorespiratory fitness and hemoglobin A1C. The basic pathophysiology, we're on RNs here, so I think you guys all know this. I'm just putting it up here. We'll run through this part pretty quickly. Remember, I'm focusing on type 2 here, not type 1. So we're looking at lack of insulin and insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, some people require more insulin for basic biological functions. They decrease utilization of glucose. They can have receptor issues, or in a lot of cases, there are post-receptor issues. And I did take this from Abdul DeFranzo. Multiple post-receptor intracellular defects, including impaired glucose transport, glucose phosphorylation, reduced glucose oxidation, glycogen synthesis. Those are post-receptor defects. I wasn't too familiar with those, so I looked that up and had to put that up there. And then other people have pancreatic problems where they have impaired insulin production. They could have liver problems where they have impaired receptor production or receptors. And then absent first phase, and then the second phase, for those of you who probably do know, some of you don't. The first phase is when you ingest the sugar, your body dumps that stored insulin. The second phase is after 20 minutes or so. If that blood glucose level hasn't decreased down to an acceptable level, then it's going to dump that second store of insulin. And type 2 diabetics have problems with either first or second phase, some both. This is just an illustration showing the glucose and the insulin flows in the bloodstream, showing the receptors. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with that. Okay, so type 2 diabetics are either insulin resistant or deficient. It is a progressive disease, which means it will get worse, especially if they are not managing it properly, which as Americans, we have a hard time doing because we like to eat, we like to not be active, we have a large obesity problem, and just some of the things, glucose toxicity, we know that, the polys, polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia. These are just some of the criteria that we use to see if someone is diabetic or not. Your fasting plasma glucose, your casual plasma glucose, and your glucose tolerance test, which I'm sure everybody here has done that multiple times. HbA1c is the big one I focus on during my project because that's really what tells us how they're doing over the 3-month periods. And that's a much more accurate test than those as far as giving us long-term what's going on. Now here's the comorbidities that are associated with type 2 diabetes. And if you look up also on the top 10 comorbidities, or the top 10 causes of death in America, diabetes shares, I believe, 7 comorbidities with the top 10 causes of death. Wow. So it's very important that we're aware of this disease that keeps growing in our country, around the world, but in our country particularly. And cardiovascular disease is right up there at the top. Those with diabetes also tend to have cardiovascular comorbidities. CVA, they have kidney problems, of course blood pressure, neuropathy, so on. The big one that I'm focusing on is the top one, cardiovascular disease, because that kind of stems, that with diabetes kind of will extend to everything else if those two things aren't controlled. So diabetes is just ahead, and the reason I put it there is because we're going to get to the incidence. So I thought these numbers were pretty scary. Between 90 and 95% of diabetics are type 2 in the U.S., which means that we probably have a diet problem nationwide. We probably have an exercise problem nationwide. 8.7% of Caucasians have this. This is of any age. 13.3% African Americans, 9.5% Latinos. Over the age of 60, it goes up to 21%. So that shows as we get older, of course, we're more susceptible to this. Males over the age of 20 are at 10.9%. Females do a little better at 8.8%. But the projection is for 13% of adults to be type 2 diabetic over the age of 20 by just 2021. And that's quite an increase. So we got to do something about it, be aware, educate. And the risk factors, aging, sedentary lifestyle, obesity, and especially visceral fat. So we want to control that. And here is my PCOT. Now PCOT stands for the population, define the population of the patient and the problem. You state your intervention. You state your intervention as compared to the norm or to no intervention. And then what outcome do you expect or are you looking to find in the evidence over what time period? Time can be left out. I put it in this one. So my PCOT is in adult patients over the age of 18 with type 2 diabetes. How does monitoring glycohemoglobin and cardiorespiratory fitness compared to only monitoring glycohemoglobin affect the disease progression indicators over at least a 3-month period of time?
That you're going to see again. The PCOT, you're going to see again.
Yeah, you're going to love it. So what is CRF? I don't know how many people here are familiar with it, but CRF is a measurement of the maximal oxygen consumption of an individual. They call it VO2 max, and V stands for basically volume of oxygen. So the maximum, it's a point to where your body is no longer running off of aerobic energy. It converts to anaerobic, and that's the point when they say it's VO2 max. Okay, it's correlated with MET, these metabolic equivalent levels, and a MET is defined as the amount of oxygen consumed while at rest, which is considered equal to 3.5 milliliters of O2 per kilogram per minute. Now, CRF, or VO2 max, is also measured kilogram per minute. So it's milliliters per kilogram per minute. And what do we use to measure it? Well, you see this guy here's got the mask on. They hook it up to the computer. The computer studies the gases that are coming out of them. The people give a thumbs up, thumbs down, and they come up with their calculations. They can do it using treadmills, ergometers. Ergometers are basically bicycles or anything, hand propelled, or basically anything they use to make people sweat. And this, what I like about the CRF is it's an objective measure of the fitness level, because at this point in time when we're speaking to type 2 diabetics, we ask them about their lifestyle choices. It's mostly subjective. All we have to go off is how often do you exercise? What do you do when you exercise? We don't have an objective measure to say, well, you know, you were more in shape in your prior visit than you are today. We have to go off of what they're telling us. The CRF would change that. So it's more reliable than self-reporting. And this is just a bigger picture of someone doing a VO2 max test. Okay, CRF and blood glucose. This was Jackie et al. And Joe Hansen. These are just some of the journal articles that I used for my study. Those are the authors of these studies. And these studies supported using CRF for maintaining type 2 diabetics. They found statistically significant inverse associations between HbA1c and a change in fitness. When they say inverse association, they mean as the change in fitness increased, the HbA1c decreased, and vice versa. So that showed the more fit you were, the lower your HbA1c, the less fit you were, the higher. They found significant associations concerning CRF and improvement with the reduction of CVD and CHF risk. Remember going back to that list of comorbidities, they found that if you increase your CRF, you're decreasing your problems with CVD and CHF, those cardiac problems. And then evidence does point toward the conclusion that CRF increases the lowering of HbA1c brought about by weight loss. So of course, if you're in better shape, you're going to lose more weight, which is basically what that says. So for glucose control, of course, primary control is lifestyle modification. It's diet and fitness, diet and nutrition. So when we're talking to our patients about improving CRF, we have to educate them. We have to tell them, we have to find ways that they can become more fit, ways they can eat better. We have to direct them towards support groups, whether it's joining an aerobics class or a boot camp at the gym or whatever, getting online and finding other diabetics or just other people who are into fitness, and then make them accountable. And CRF would, in a way, make them accountable, which is another reason why I like that CRF, because they know when they come to the doctor's office and they're not just getting that HbA1c check, they know I'm going to get that CRF check too. Well, that makes them accountable. So as I stated before, CRF is currently not used to monitor type 2 diabetic patients. It does provide objective data, and it can be monitored with readily available equipment. Hospitals around the country all have this equipment they use for stress tests and other things like that. And CRF, according to research, should be monitored and tracked together along with hemoglobin. So now we get to my questions. And I believe I handed out some questions, and if you could, they can be anonymous, but if you would answer them, I would very much appreciate it. I don't have to do a bunch of stuff with them. It's going to be fun. It's my profession. Oh, Thank you. Want two more? Oh, the hand out? I've got plenty of this. Sorry, I missed it. Thank you.
Don't knock it down.
Okay, so just true or false, do you believe CRF is inversely proportional to glycohemoglobin? True. Visceral fat and HbA1c are directly proportional. Visceral fat, as you get bigger, HbA1c goes up, they're directly proportional. Diet and exercise are two main factors to manage type 2 diabetes. True. That's true. And is there evidence that supports that higher CRF leads to weight loss? True. You exercise, you can lose weight. Is there evidence supporting that CRF monitoring of patients, supporting the monitoring of CRF patients,
Yes.
or type 2 diabetic patients with CRF?
True.
Sorry, that's not. Yes, there is evidence supporting it, which is what I showed. Okay, this is just a sample VO2 max table. It shows years of age, and it also has it separated by men and women. So you can see a 20-year-old woman with 37 VO2 max score is your average. To the right it gets worse, to the left it gets better. For men, 20-year-old man, 44 is average. Excellent, greater than 62. There's some interesting articles online if you want to look it up. They talk about people like Lance Armstrong and show their CRF or their VO2 max values. They're way up off the charts. I think the highest VO2 max measured was this cross-country skier. He was up in the 80s or 90s, something ridiculously high. Okay, so we're also going to do a quick case study. We can all participate. This is open. You can blur out what you want. So we'll read it first. And I did include that in the handout so you can read it along with me. A 52-year-old female patient presents to the clinic to review the results of her 6-month checkup, which included an HbA1c test and a CRF study. The following columns represent the patient's prior and current results.
gained weight.
we have some weight gain, which shows that she was either put on a whole bunch of muscle or she put on
She
a whole
didn't do
bunch.
anything.
Right. Now, further evidence we have 6 months ago, our glycogen was 8.5, and now it's 8.9.
She wasn't following the diet.
Right? And then our CRF 6 months ago, she had a score of 22, and now she's at 20, so it got worse. So every indication here tells us that this patient is not following the diet and the exercise regime that she gave us. During the initial visit, the patient stated that she was exercising 3 to 4 times per week. She didn't know we had the results yet. The patient stated that she generally walked for 30 minutes each, and when she did, she walked 30 minutes each time. When presented with the results, the patient stated that she had exercised 3 or 4 times some weeks, but went for several weeks at a time without any exercise sessions. So what would be some information for the nurse to document?
Patient's non-compliant.
Non-compliant patient.
But before we say she's not compliant, we need to figure out why.
Why?
She
Okay.
didn't walk for several weeks.
So we
Did she
get
have an
into,
accident?
right, we explore, get a patient profile and find out what is causing this barrier and what we
Is she back in school?
Dinner.
Dinner?
Have time to go to the gym.
There you go. Okay, and then that would get into, once we identify those, what education would we provide to the patient? So we come up with ways that she can work, exercise, and proper diet into her schedule, like that guy over there. Oh, you're over there now. I saw you bring your fit food with you, and you're eating that.
Chase Pokemon.
We have to be culture sensitive and apply our ethics because some people we have to tailor the education to fit their culture. In the way we can help them.
There you go. Bring it back to what you were presenting earlier. That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Brownie points.
Okay, and then we have another little discussion. Just from this quick presentation and my mumbling, do you feel that CRF may be a useful tool in assessing and managing patients with type 2 diabetes?
Yes.
Do you feel confident in your ability to assess the risk factors identified in this presentation?
Yes.
All right, I'm doing wonderfully. What kinds of education would be helpful to type 2 diabetic patients?
Yes.
Diet, nutrition.
Exercise. And we will find out. It's all in the numbers.
Right. Great. And then here's my reference.
So let's give Todd some feedback. What was
It's
the best part
APA.
about that?
It's not
All
APA
of
format.
Yes.
But it's PowerPoint, and it's hard to do it.
Oh, that's for the doctor or professor to decide.
You can't indent. You cannot do a hanging indent on a
Let's
PowerPoint.
go back to like the first few slides. So
Okay.
the great thing about what Todd did here is that he didn't read to you from here,
Right.
because that tells me you don't care about me, right? So Todd was comfortable, he had eye contact with us, he didn't read out of notes too often. My favorite is that he had references on his slides,
Yay.
that, you know, he told me that he researched this really well, he defined his concepts, you know, he got your involvement from the audience. What else did he do?
I have a question, Tom.
Yes, ma'am.
What about your pictures? Because in other words, I love pictures, I love color and pictures.
Yeah,
But and for my own knowledge base, is like, how are you allowed to take those pictures and put them on your parent?
yeah, well,
What's the rules on that?
well, it depends. If it's copyrighted, you need to get permission technically. But, you know, I think he was okay, because where did you get your pictures from anyway? I don't know.
Honestly, Google Images.
You Google Images, okay, public domain, okay.
Right.
So, but that's a good point, because when I did one of my presentations for my doctoral stuff, I used images, and I had to call and get permission for that. But Google Images
So
is public domain.
that's a public debate. Okay, so because I've heard both sides, and I like I like that you have a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
And that helps just give it more light, you know, from
Yeah.
my perspective. So.
Yep.
So I like that.
Yeah.
Keeps attention too.
And pictures are,
Yeah, sorry.
well, being that we're on the pictures, I did a presentation one time, but I think it was MLA, and I put pictures in it. They said pictures aren't allowed in MLA, but they're allowed in APA.
No, I think you can, you know, I mean,
Might have been the
I
professor.
haven't used MLA as much as I have APA, but, yeah, definitely use pictures.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm all about pictures,
But,
but
you know, they give them
think it was
credit
an English
for wherever
teacher.
it comes from. Make sure you give them
So
credit.
how are we giving credit for pictures?
Go
That's.
back to your slides.
I didn't.
You get on Google,
That's great.
you know,
That's good.
those are fine, those are just general pictures. But I saw you had, like, in the first
Like
view,
a chart, you mean
yeah.
like charts
Yeah.
and stuff?
yeah, you had a really nice image about, insulin resistance.
Todd said, I didn't know
Yeah.
y'all be grading my presentation
know-
like that.
You know, I mean, this is probably public domain stuff too, but, you know, technically, you probably should have a site in there. You know, I'm not too worried about it because it's public domain stuff. The big picture is that having this information, or a better way to say it, when you have education, you have more power to change things, okay? So Todd has found out that CRF is a useful tool for diabetics, okay? So what do we do with that information? This is all about higher education. What do you do with that information? You bring it to somebody and say, this is what the evidence says. It's important what I think, but most importantly, it's what the evidence says. Evidence says that it's a good tool, so why aren't we doing it? So, you know, he has the power to change things at his practice, I don't know where you work, but, you know, you have the power to, you have that information, it's very good information, you have the power to change things in your practice. So that's what higher education does for you, okay? And nurses need to be more empowered with that kind of stuff. Why aren't we doing it? Well, probably because it costs money, but, you know, if it costs less money than managing someone's disease down the road, then we should be doing it, right? It's the best thing to do, it's a beneficent thing to do, right? Okay, so have you done anything with this yet, or not?
With, no,
In your practice, or not?
no, not yet.
Okay, so that's what my degree is all about, is evaluating the evidence in the literature and the evidence, how can we change practice? And, you know, a lot of what we do in practice is just anecdotal stuff, which doesn't mean anything. So we need to really look at the evidence, and we need to change practice and then evaluate. So, that was a great presentation, Todd, you did a wonderful job. Really, really good. Now, part of looking in the literature is using that PICO statement that he talked about, population, the intervention, the control.